Good morning. My name is Owen. My pronouns are he, him, they, them, and I am this morning's worship associate. If today is your first day, your first time with us, welcome. We were all new once, and we hope that you find what we did here. And we'd love to get to know you, so right after service, you're invited to our welcoming room, which is located at the south entrance. If you're joining us online, the link to our visitor form is being dropped into the chat right now. As you enter this sanctuary and at any point during the service, you may write your joys and sorrows in our book, light a candle, or place a stone in the water. Those joining from home can write prayers of joy and sorrow into the Zoom chat, which will be open until the start of the sermon. And during the week, anyone can go to the pastoral care portal on our website to let our ministers know you need some support. We gather in worship to find meaning and to live more deeply. Worship creates connections within, among, and beyond us, calling us to our better selves, calling us to live with wisdom and compassion. Whoever you are, whomever you love, and whatever your vision of the holy, we are glad that you're here.
And now let's say together our statement of shared purpose by saying and affirming the words of our mission. Empowered by love, we transform ourselves and serve our world. Good Sunday morning, everyone. I am the Reverend Jen Youngsun, and I use the pronouns she and her. Before I call us to worship, I want to remind you that our church has a table at Pride this year. And we still need a couple of people to be at that table at the afternoon shift this Saturday. So if you can do that, if you can help us out, please sign up. And I also want to say hello to Ryan Doppelmayr. This is her very first Sunday with us as our new Director of Faith Development. Yes, we are overjoyed to have you here, and we'll hear a little more from Ryan later in the service. So if you were here last week, you'll remember that I mentioned that we welcomed 27 new people to our congregation last year. Barbara and Chris Kenny were just two of them. We ask our new members to share a photo and a bio so that we can get to know them better. But how can you squeeze an entire life into just a few paragraphs for the church newsletter? What do you reveal? What do you save for a later time? What do you keep in the private sanctuary of your heart? What happened to the Kenny family is now a matter of public record. You can read about the incident that took the life of their child in both local and national newspapers. This morning, Barbara, who has been a Unitarian Universalist since 1987, shows us what courageous love looks like by sharing her family's story with us, her religious community. Today's service reveals the enormous harm that has been done by police in the name of safety and protection. If at any time during this service you start feeling overwhelmed, I ask you to just take care of yourself, please. Take a walk around our gardens, log off the internet, people on Zoom. Or we've set up room 1, which is a quiet space where you can go and find some refuge. The ushers can show you where room 1 is. We also have our lay pastoral associates here. I know Molly May, Emmett is here, I think Sally is here, Daniel may be here. And Susan, if you'll just raise your hands to show us who you are. Yes, thank you. They are our lay pastoral associates, and you can go to them at any time. I pray that the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart honor your family and inspire all of us to embody our values even when we are afraid. Come, let us speak the truth about the roots of our fear and our desire for safety. Come, let us worship together. Let us now enter a time of prayerful meditation as we practice generating and cultivating more loving kindness within ourselves and in our world. So find a comfortable posture, relax, close your eyes if that's comfortable for you, and begin by picturing yourself as if looking into a mirror. What do you see? What does this person need from you? Here is someone worthy of tender care and love. Here is someone worthy of forgiveness. Picture yourself and say to yourself, may I be happy. May I be well. May I be at peace. And now expand that loving kindness to the people dearest to you, the ones who are easy to love. See their faces before you. Say to them, may you be happy. May you be well. May you be at peace. And now extend loving kindness to a wider circle. Think about someone you see regularly, like people here at church, people at school or at work, the person at the grocery store or the one who delivers your packages. Maybe you don't know their name yet. Send them your care and say to them, may you be happy. May you be well. May you be at peace. And now expand your awareness to strangers and even to non-human beings that we share this planet with. They are kin, members of our family. We send loving kindness, especially those who are suffering today. Say to them, may you be safe. May you be well. May you be at peace. And finally, expand your loving kindness and your awareness to someone who brings negative, uncomfortable feelings to you. See that person in your mind's eye. Say to them, may you be happy. May you be well. May you be at peace.
In 1963, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered the eulogy for the 4 children who were killed in the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama. Though the circumstances of that hateful act are not the same, the harm to families and the racist roots of systemic violence are similar. Here is part of his remarks about those 4 girls. Quote, they have something to say to every minister of the gospel who has remained silent behind the safe security of stained glass windows. They have something to say to every politician who has fed his constituents with the stale bread of hatred and the spoiled meat of racism. They say to each of us that we must substitute courage for caution. End quote. Here are the photos of just a few of the parents who have lost their children to police brutality in recent years. Kadiatou Diallo, Amadou Diallo, 1999. Darlene Kane, Dale Graham, 2008. Karen Griffin, Jacob Griffin, 2021. Valerie Bell, Sean Bell, 2006. Marion Gray Hopkins, Gary Hopkins Jr., 1999. Gwen Carr, Eric Garner, 2014. Peter Loyola, Patrick Loyola, 2022. Rahim al-Rahim, Usama Rahim, 2015. Kim Thomas, Earl Schleek Pinkney, 2016. Adrian Hood, Henry Bubba Green V, 2016. Barbara Kenny, Patrick Stacy Kenny, 2019.
The grief over a child's death is already an unbearable loss. And that grief can become complicated by the circumstances of that death, the child's age, or the lack of support one finds in that grief. For families who have lost children to police brutality, that experience of loss is deepened and fractured when there is no acknowledgement of the harm, and when the system they thought was there to serve and protect fails them. In the spring of 2019, Stacy Kenny, who asked to be called by that name with she, her pronouns by the wider world, but preferred to be called Patrick by her family and friends, was driving in Springfield when she was pulled over by the police. I relay this story to you based on what I've read in the newspapers and other public accounts, and many of these words are from Stacy's own family. Her sister says that Stacy immediately pulled over, probably because she was scared and hoped that the policeman would just drive by. Then, in the space of just 5 minutes, all while seatbelted in her car, without weapons, drugs, or alcohol, Stacy was brutally battered and then shot 5 times. I am not going to elaborate the details of those 5 minutes because the family doesn't need to hear those one more time. Trust me when I tell you that I have read the full account, and the violence experienced by that young person at the hands of Springfield police was excessive and unconscionable. It was unnecessary and avoidable.
Good morning, everyone. Morning. First, thank you, Rev. Jen, for leading this community into a discussion of this complex and very difficult issue. How does a mother experience the state-sanctioned homicide of her eldest child, her only son? There are lost dreams, an infinite future without him, a kaleidoscope of images and emotions. Why couldn't I protect him? Dates, so many dates. The date he died, the date he was born, the date we created him, the date he got second in the state high jump competition, 6'9". I have a picture. The date he graduated from Ohio State University, the date we convinced him to take medication for his schizophrenia, the date he stopped taking his medication for his schizophrenia, the date our therapist told us he had schizophrenia, the date we called our therapist to tell him that Patrick had been shot and killed, and our therapist cried. The effers, he said. The date of the memorial service, and the very next date is his sister's birthday. Her day of celebration forever woven next to her brother's day of mourning. The date of the 15-hour marathon settlement conference that ended our lawsuit. Did we do the right thing? The date of our anniversary, and 37 years later, that same date, I picked up his ashes at the morgue. The date we moved to Springfield. Remind me again, why did we do that? So many dates every year. Names. What is in a name? Patrick, Stacy, both, and. He wants the family to know Patrick. She wants the public to know Stacy. What gender do you want on the death certificate, they ask me. Wait, why is there a death certificate? There must be a mistake. Confusion. Who do we believe? What really happened? There is the district attorney's version, sanitized events with strategic omissions, red herrings, and intent to mislead. But this is our first understanding. Then there is our attorney's version, a meticulously documented, blow by blow, taser by taser, bullet by bullet description, correlated to the time-stamped 911 audio recording. A slow dawning of what truly happened, what didn't have to happen, what shouldn't have happened, and the added trauma of realizing we'd been duped. Depositions. Surreal. One by one, we are across the conference table from the 4 men who took my son's life, and then the chief who allowed it. They are answering questions. We are excused each time the pictures come out. The largest police wrongful death settlement in Oregon history. 8 demanded changes in police policies and procedures. The front page Sunday edition of the Washington Post. A podcast about it, integrated with the audio of the last moments of my son's life. Finally, an accurate representation of what happened. But suddenly, I'm on the floor, curled in a ball. Somehow it makes the listening easier. Trauma. I didn't understand that at first. Everyone kept talking to me about grief. What is grief? I know Patrick is gone. That's not the problem. That's not helping. The problem is the violence he experienced, the violence that was not acknowledged, the violence that's acceptable in this society. The problem is everything I thought I knew about the world is wrong. Harm. I want them to acknowledge the harm, the irresponsible, irrevocable, inconceivable harm to Patrick. The harm to his younger cousins, who now wonder if the police will kill them. The harm to his grandmother, who was already reeling from the recent loss of her husband. Even the harm to the shooting officer, who ended a life that day. How is this public safety? Justice. Why are the bereaved in charge of ensuring accountability and forcing change? Will our settlement fix a broken system? Or did we only contribute Band-Aids, continuing to hold together a fundamentally flawed construct? Did we do the right things? Healing. How do we heal? I heal with kindness, meals from neighbors for a month, a candlelight vigil in my neighbor's living room, visits, phone calls, and genuine compassion. I'll take care of Patrick's car for you, he says. New friends whose support means more than they could know. I heal with empathy. People telling me they cried when they heard my legislative testimony. My seasoned attorney choking up when he tells me he has read my journal. An email from the shooter. I am sorry, he says. A phone call from the new police chief on his first day. My condolences on the loss of your child, he says. I heal with nature. Floating down the Mackenzie in the solitude of the river and the birds. The beauty of the mountains and the forests. I heal with service, helping other mothers who suddenly find themselves like me. Working for change so there won't be so many other mothers like me. Am I healed? I don't know. I just know I'm learning to live with the scars, and I have to keep trying to make things better.
We're concerned. Thank you very much, Barbara. I invite all of you just to check in with yourself right now. Become aware of your thoughts. What questions come to your mind? What emotions rise in your body? Our lived experiences will often shape our responses. Those who have been taught to trust the police may wonder what Stacy might have done wrong. Those who grew up watching the police making things worse may assume that Stacy did nothing wrong. What did you learn about the police? I grew up in suburban Ohio in the 1970s, and when I was young, all I wanted was to be a white girl. I learned from my favorite TV show, Adam 12, that I could count on the police to protect and serve, that they were here to keep us safe from harm. My parents knew better. My parents and other people of color learned a different lesson, that you need to be careful around the police, that they could harass, injure, or kill you for no reason, and there would be no consequences, and there's nothing that you could do about it. The Washington Post columnist Michael Gerson observed that white people in America tend to assume at a deep level that America's economic, governmental, and legal systems are roughly fair. Because American systems seem fair, it must be the individual's fault when they are poor and powerless and imprisoned. It's easy for the privileged to say, well, you know, this really doesn't concern me because I am a good person. And good people just don't get tangled up in the criminal justice system. One of the reasons that Barbara wanted to share her story is to remind us that police violence can happen to anyone. We are all at risk. I mean, what if you're pulled over and your hearing loss prevents you from responding to the officer as quickly as they want? What if your English just isn't that good and you don't understand what they're asking you to do? And what if you just had a really, really bad day at work and you get pulled over and the officer just doesn't like your demeanor that day? For too long, we have accepted brutality and violence against certain members of the community as the cost of keeping other members safe. As long as these events were kept out of the public eye, the majority could just remain ignorant. And then came the videos. Now, an overwhelming majority of Americans, regardless of political identity, support reforms in policing. These last few years have seen all kinds of people taking to the streets to protest police violence. Our local photographer, Robert Sherrill, took photos of local protests, and they are in the hallway right outside here. I join him in his desire that these images will provoke us to make changes in our own biases and preconceptions. It's one thing to point our finger at bad cops and dishonest public servants and a deeply broken system, but sometimes the hardest work is to confront ourselves with a new or startling truth. Our modern system of policing has a long history that I will not go into today, but I did link an excellent article from the Atlantic magazine in our electronic order of service. There are QR codes all over the building where you can get quick access to our order of service. And Izzy will help you if you have trouble with the QR codes. And Kat has also dropped that link into the Zoom chat. In that article, Jill Lepore writes, "The police, as a civil force charged with deterring crime, came to the United States from England, and is generally associated with the monarchy, or keeping the king's peace. Which makes it surprising then that in the anti-monarchical United States, that policing got so big so fast. The reason is mainly slavery." Historians have well documented the relationship between American policing and white supremacy going back to slave patrols. In 2006, the FBI sounded the alarm about white supremacists in law enforcement agencies. And now, a decade and a half later, some experts say that the infiltration of white nationalists has grown into an epidemic. Every year, about 1,000 people are shot and killed by the police. Most of them are young, Black, and male. You know, I hate having to repeat that statistic because I feel like every time we say this, it somehow becomes a fact of nature, as if it were something that were always true and will always be true, rather than something that is appalling and unacceptable, something that makes us want to change things. bias isn't the only factor affecting police violence. There's an entire system of secrecy and dishonesty. There's lack of training, low pay, and a culture that shuns mental health care for officers who are exposed to traumatic events every single day. The United States has the highest rate of civilians killed by police compared to all other democratic nations. We also have the highest incarceration rates and the largest number of people in jail. Activists working in this area have come to the conclusion that incremental changes will not work. When trying to reform the police, is it even possible to keep the system intact while just pulling from it little pieces of legacy, of overseers, of slave catchers, of white supremacy? And so, at the 2020 General Assembly of the Unitarian Universalist Association, UU delegates voted to adopt a call to action to engage in the larger movement to end anti-Blackness and to defund the police. That phrase, defund the police, often stops a very important conversation. And maybe that's why the author, Zach Norris, chose the words defund fear instead, because he wants this conversation to keep going. If we rely on the police to help us feel safe rather than fearful, then what is it that we're really afraid of? And what is it about the fears that we hold that makes the police the only answer? What do you and your family truly need to be protected from? When should you call the police? Who benefits and who is at risk when you call the police? There is so much more to talk about, and we're running out of time. But today was really just an invitation, an opening of the door that we hope you will want to pass through. Whether or not you join our 6-week workshop based on the book, Defund Fear, I hope that you will want to know more about these issues and also about yourself and your relationship to fear and safety. So sometimes I feel that this sense of tension between people who want church to be all about cultivating a deep spiritual life and people who want activism and to change the world. But the thing that I love about Unitarian Universalism is that those two things do not exist on a spectrum. Those two things are not at the opposite ends of a line, but they are just two parts of a moving circle. Activism informs our spiritual practice, and our spiritual practice strengthens our activism. Our experiences out in the world bring greater empathy and then deepens our capacity for loving kindness. And then our loving kindness compels us to serve the world. May it be ever so. Amen. Blessed be. Let's say together our closing words as we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And now, my friends, go out into this fresh new day and into this new week and remember the wisdom of Edward Everett Hale. You may only be one, but you are still one. You cannot do everything, but you still can do something. And because you cannot do everything, you must not refuse to do the something that you can do. Go in peace, my friends. Go in love. Go in truth.